Welcome to the Adam Software Summer Release Updates for the 2019-2020 season. My name is Mark Preco, CEO and founder of Adam Software, and it's my pleasure today to present these enhancements to you. This year we're doing both a summer and a fall release. So the fall release will focus on some larger changes, larger enhancements, and you actually will probably be able to see a couple of those today because we're already pushing those into our demo beta sites. So to begin, you should have an outline in front of you, the one that's showing on the screen. And if you do not, then in the upper right hand corner in Adam, there's a help menu that you should be aware of, and you can download that outline and follow along. And that's probably the easiest way to go through these enhancements. So to begin, we have Miscellaneous, and the first bullet, new help videos and field descriptions. So as we add enhancements, we're adding help videos, and we're trying to identify each one of the fields with a description to help it make it easier for you to know what Adam is trying to have you do. So I definitely encourage you to continue to read those to help you, and they're all located inside the files. Usually every section has a screen help. If you look here, account information screen help. So there's videos and there's field descriptions in there. And I'm going to keep going through the outline. Now we have these new information bars. So every time you saved a file, saved anywhere inside the file, when I click on here, Save Note, used to be a bar that would go across letting you know it's saved. Now it's just located in the upper left-hand corner here. You see it just disappeared. I'll click Save again. So anytime you had a message bar, it used to be in red. Sometimes it'd go across the middle of the page. Now it's just going to be located in the upper left-hand corner, and then it's slowly going to disappear. The notes field, so we've always been using Internet Explorer as our web browser, and we're trying to get away from that, and now we're going to go to Google Chrome. But you can still use Firefox or Safari. Internet Explorer still works fine with Adam. It's just now with them Microsoft not supporting IE anymore, we try to want to get away from that and be more secure and go with some of the other web providers. So we're using Google Chrome in our office, and one of the nice features of that, and when you have a text box that you have to enter notes, in the lower right hand corner here, you can expand that text box to make it any size you'd like to enter a note or to read whatever's in there. So when I scroll down here to say, for example, in my office events, I'm inside of a client file right now. When I select the edit pencil to make an edit, you see those little diagonal dashes. You can just left click and drag it and expand that box to any size you'd like. So that's kind of a nice feature that Chrome offers. Just wanted to point that out to you. Moving into our next section, we have lobby management, and we've taken the check-in screen and we made it a mobile version. So I'm going to show you what we did with that here. I'll move this over. Oops, 1 second. Drag this over here. So this is our check-in screen, the mobile version. And when you check a client in now, they could use their phone if they like, or the iPad if you have that in your office. Just to let you know that it is in there. There's a URL that we have on the outline. So the very first one, it's a little longer. What that one is, that's our default URL for the mobile or for the check-in screen, and that means if the client were to use a desktop, it'll show the desktop version. If they have an iPad or a phone, it'll show the mobile version. The next URL is strictly the mobile version. So it depends on how you want to use the check-in screen, but that's why there are two URLs. So if you use the first one, you're safe because it doesn't matter which way they use desktop or iPad or phone. That would be if the mobile version is going to be helpful for you. All right, the next thing I want to point out, streamline the check-in process. So for a married filing separate client, in this case I have John Casey and Mary Casey here, so they're going to file married filing separate. So when I'm in the contact information section of the file, we have a new box here that you can check, labeling the spouse as married filing separate. It'll highlight in yellow once you save it. And the importance of this is mostly in the check-in process to make this a more simpler process. So if I have a new client or I have a spouse who's going to do married filing separate for the first year, as long as I know that in advance, I can check this box, save it. So when they come in, so when Mary checks in, it's actually going to create a brand new file for her, and the receptionist doesn't have to do anything. And I'm going to demonstrate that right now. So I'm going to have Mary here. So here's her social. And in order for this to streamline, you have to use a check-in screen where Adam will do all the work for you. So I check in. It's going to welcome Mary back. Doesn't mention John at all because it's Mary's filing her own return. Because it's her first visit as being a taxpayer, it's going to tell her to come see the receptionist just to complete the whole process, make sure we have an ID and everything. Then on my home page, where I put her in the lobby, she's down here at the bottom here, Mary Casey, spouse John Casey, and it's identified. He's identified with a MFS for married filing separate, so the preparer will know this is a married filing separate return. At the same time, Mary's always been a spouse. Now she's a taxpayer. Adam automatically created her a new account, labeling her as a taxpayer, and it also puts the number of years she's been with us, so 17 years. So before, the receptionist would have to do all this work. Now it's all done in seconds, and Mary actually did the work, and now she has a brand new file. So this is going to make it a lot easier when you have a married filing separate client. Now when John checks in, pull him back up here. When John checks in, I'm going to enter his social here. Say he comes in a week later, it's going to welcome him back, just like always. As you notice, it doesn't say Mary because John's filing separately. So then John now pops in my lobby screen. He's a taxpayer. Mary's the married filing separate spouse. It's identified there again in parentheses, so then the preparer knows this person's filing married filing separate. So I really think this is going to make it a lot simpler with this married filing separate type tax returns. And again, the check-in screen helps the whole process to make it easier. Moving to the next section, we have the client portal. I'm going to pull that up real quick here. Let me close out that. Here's our client portal. Again, I'm in here for John Casey. Let me refresh this screen here. So uploading files. So many of you have known this has been kind of a challenge for some of our clients that have their file names have all kinds of special characters, and Adam doesn't like all these special characters. We had some trouble with that. So we fixed the problem. The main culprit was the plus symbol. And what we did to correct the problem is when a client uploads a file name that has a plus symbol in it, when Adam saves it into the document management system, it's actually going to take that plus symbol and replace it with an underscore. So then Adam will have no problems with that file. So bottom line is any special characters your clients upload with a file name, there's no issues anymore. So that's good news. Making payments, when your client wants to make a payment from the portal, they can just go ahead and hit, again, pay with credit card. There's been problems where they've tried to submit duplicate payments. Now there won't be an issue anymore. So if they either pick pay with e-check or pay with credit card, once they fill this information out and they hit submit or send payment, the screen will be grayed out. They will not be able to do anything else behind it. They'll see the information behind it, but it's going to have a light gray screen to it. There's going to be an OK button. They hit OK. It's going to take them right back to the main page here, so they will not be able to submit two payments at the same time. So you shouldn't have to worry about that anymore. My documents. I'm going to go to my documents here. So these are the documents for John Casey for 2018. I put limited access here on his 2018 return. That's why it's saying he has to pay his bill. Over here in the right-hand column where it says account balance, we used to list or display in green what the account balance was. The clients were getting confused when you had multiple documents out here. So say they had a balance of $75 for each one of these documents. They thought they owed $150 when really it was an account balance, means for that year it was $75. So what we did is we removed that so we don't confuse the client. There still is a hyperlink here saying there's a balance pending. If they click on it, it's going to take them right to the make payment page, and they can go ahead and pay that balance off, and then they would be able to see the document. Now, they shouldn't have an issue because on the page itself on the portal, they should see that they have a balance of 75. And obviously they can just click on this anytime and pay their bill. But they were getting confused because this column was showing the same amount multiple times and they thought they had a larger balance. Update my personal information. All we did is on that, not a big deal. We just added the cell phone for the client to add. And again, that would be automatically updated in the contact information. Okay, moving on to page 2 of the outline. It's the home page. I'm going to close out the portal. We're done with the portal. Now I'm on the home page here for my office events. And let me go to tax preparation. And if you notice up here, the user, we have it labeled all. So now you can pick, before it was either all or it was going to be whatever users logged in. So in this case would have been Mark Preco. Now I can select any user I'd like to look at their events, their client records. So if I want to focus in on just Mark, of course I'm just going to display mine. And this user drop down, this is filtered by either the event user or the account user. So the account user is typically the person preparing the return, and that's located in the account information section inside the client file. The event user, which is right over here, in this case, Dave Murray, that's the person who created that event. So who moved it into that status. Okay, now the event user can be overridden, but you can identify how do you want these office event pages to be filtered by? Do you want it to go by the account user or the event user? So sometimes you want the account user, sometimes you want the event user, all right? In this example, for tax preparation, I want the account user because I want to know I want to look at people who are preparing the tax return. So this is actually filtered based on the account user. And that's all set up in admin in the event status. And you can identify whether you want the filtering by the account user or the event user. An example where we're going to want it to be filtered by the, if I move down here to reviewer questions, let me see, is this one by event user too? This is a by account user. If I go to pending my to-do list, I have this one identified by my event user. So pending my to-do list means these are tasks I need to complete, even though I may not have actually done the tax return. So if you look here, I have Becky as the account user for 3 of them, but I am the event user because these are my tasks over here. So you just kind of have to figure out, based on the event, would I like it filtered based on the event user, the person who created it, or needs to do the work, or the account user, which would be typically the tax preparer and business type, tax preparation. So this is all set up in your admin event status. Okay, next I have the lobby office event, which we just went over that. So under the married filing separate, so if you have a married filing separate account, again, you do have to tag it in the contact information section and check the box. But when the client comes in, the spouse will be identified as that they're doing married filing separate to make it easier for the tax preparer when they take them back. Expand and collapse event notes. So let me scroll down to my pending client where I have a lot of long notes. And I'm going to make this a little smaller here. Okay. Well, maybe I'll make it bigger so you guys can see it. All right, so in the notes section here, if you see there's like a little upside or the arrow, I have it set, and I set this up on my user page in admin. I want to expand and collapse my notes. So if I check the arrow here, now I can see all my notes. I can collapse that. If I want to do all my notes at one time, I can select it over here on the right-hand side, so all my notes have been expanded. And I can then collapse them too. If you notice when I scroll down here, I'm not seeing all my client records. And the reason that is because my column headings are frozen. Okay, so this is a change that we're still working on in beta test. This is for the fall update. So again, I told you at the beginning of the video is that you might see some of my other some of the other enhancements, but we're not actually pushing those to you yet because we're still testing them out. But they are in my demo site right here. So that's one of them coming in the fall, but we're still working on it. But right now I'm just focusing on the expand and collapse notes. Okay, so if you don't want to see a lot of notes, you can control that, and you can do it at the user level. So some of our users like to see all the notes. Some of them do not want to unless they want to check or click on the arrow. Override fields. I'm going to go back to my reviewer questions office event here, and I'm going to select all. And down at the bottom here, we have some new override fields to make it easier for people to make changes quickly to multiple client records. So you can change your start date, end date. This is more in line with some of our people that are using, some of our users are using Atom for bookkeeping. Sometimes they want to do overrides to multiple records at one time. So now you can do quite a few things. End dates, assign dates, if you're using the office events for tracking billable time, you can do your budget hours billable. So a lot of things. So right here, so you have to turn this on though, and this is done in at the user level in admin. As you see down there, you have to check a box called Allow Batch Event Fields Override. So we may not want to give that control to everybody, but it's a quick way if you find yourself having to change certain fields for multiple records, you can do it quite quickly now on the home page. And I'm going to demonstrate one thing I want to point out here. So my event due date, if you see here, there's a checkbox that says clear date. Well, some of the enhancements we haven't talked about yet, but we're doing a lot of due date tracking. So you're going to see some things showing that they're past due because we haven't been really paying attention to that lately. I mean, in prior enhancements. So if you want to get rid of some of your due dates, all you have to do is say, I want to come in here and check these boxes, and I don't even want to have a due date on here because there really isn't a due date. If I go in here and select clear date and then hit override fields, that's going to completely remove my due date. So that's what that checkbox clear date is. So I just wanted to point that out to you because everything else is pretty self-explanatory. You just enter a date and hit the override field. The clear date, it's a little tricky, but what's that meant to do is just to take the due date completely out. So if you're not using any kind of due date tracking. Create transactions. We have that right down here, again, reviewer trend. So if you want to try to record fee and payment and discounts quickly for multiple records, you can do that. So you just enter a dollar amount here, select what the transaction is, and then you hit create transaction, and so you can do multiple ones at one time. So if you find yourself billing, again, say you're doing your bookkeeping or payroll, and at the end of the month, you got to bill the exact same fee to everybody, you can go ahead and do it all at one time and just using this feature right here. Moving along to page 3 of the outline. At the top here, we have some new columns that we added. So we haven't got into it yet, but we've enhanced how Atom can track billable time. So we've added those columns. So we have billable rate, some event type, and we have budgeted in too. So we just added some new column headings, and you can control that all in admin in the event status to show which column headings you'd like to display. But just want to point out we added a few more if it's helpful for you. Daily log and completed log. If I go down here to my bottom, daily log, and say I want to pick all days. So typically at the start of tax season, you kind of want to clear out, you might want to clear this all out and start fresh every year. So what you should have been doing is like check the box, and then you'd select remove from list. So that would basically clear any of your events out of here. So get them off your home page. Doesn't change the status, but just removes them from your home page. So the remove from list was at the bottom. So every time you'd have to scroll all the way to the bottom and hit the button. So now we just made it easier. It's at the top. So you just check the box, hit this, it'll then remove that selection from this page. And you can do the exact same thing for your completed event log. Next bullet, office event summary page. if I go up here to the home page and my office event summary, which this was a new enhancement a year ago, and I'm going to go to show you how this works. Let me find my event tax preparation. Let's go back a few, hit apply. So I have some data in here. So as I was talking about on the home page under that user dropdown, you can either do account user or event user. So based on what you selected in admin when you set this up, it'll also work the same way here. So this user, in this case for my tax prep, I said I want to focus in and filter on the account user, not the event user. So that's what this user is right here. It's going to be the account user. Same way as I move down here for my user open office event summary, if you're using these reports, this is going to filter based on however I set it up in admin. So in this case, because I'm in office event tax prep, this is my account user, not my event user. That's all I wanted to point out regarding this, if you're using this page. So the filtering will link from the home page into this page. Due date time tracking. Let me go back to my home page here for my office events. And if you look over here, we have some things highlighted in red over on the left-hand side. So now, because we did make some enhancements to our due date tracking, so now we're able to actually expand on that. So I can actually identify what client records are past due, or maybe they're due today. We even actually somewhere we can show due tomorrow. So you can easily manage your page. So because you could have multiple records, obviously, in each one of these events. So now you can, just by clicking on the home page, you can easily see which one of these client records is past due or due today. So if you look here, past due and due today, to set that up, that's all going to be done in admin in the event status. And there's 3 ways to track these due dates. So you can either track, the first one I'm talking about, it's called the minutes after start date. So for certain events, you may want to keep track of things that have been sitting in that event too long. All right, so for example, my lobby or my drop-off. So for lobby, I have it set for every 30 minutes. I want to be informed that a client record has been in there beyond 30 minutes. So that's why there's 8 in my lobby, 6 are past due. When I click on the event, you look under wait time. So this wait time is linking to that my admin event status page. So anything over 30 minutes is going to highlight in pink. So you can now control that. So before that was defaulted 30 minutes. If you don't even want to see that, you can completely remove it. If you want to make it 60 minutes or whatever you'd like to do, you can control that. But see, these 2 records right here are under 30 minutes. That's why they're not highlighted in pink. If I go to my drop off, I have that set differently. That one I have set, again, it's by minutes, but it's really 3 days. So I'm going to be informed if anything is over 3 days. So I have 3 that are past due and then 4 total. So this one is not highlighted in pink. If I scroll down to my need signatures and my extensions filed, these are based on now they're not based on how long they're sitting in that event. Now they're strictly based on the event date, due date, or my account due date. So if you look over here for pending paid need signatures, I'm looking at my event due date, and this one 8/5 was the due date, and now I'm on the 29th, so I'm 24 days past due, and that's why it's showing it's past due right here. This other one, 8/29, is my due date. That happens to be today, and that's why it says I have one that's due today. And my extension filed, I think I'm going on based on the account due date. So it might be a little confusing, but basically you can set any one of these events either by how long it's been sitting in an event to be alerted that it's past due, or if you want to strictly go off of the account due date or the event due date. And that's all set up in admin. And I refer you to those help videos in admin to get a better understanding of that. Let me see here. Going down to the bottom of this page 3 here, highlights in yellow. I think I pointed that out. So these will highlight days after the account due date, so it's going to highlight in yellow, so you'll know which one is past due. And of course, if it's not past due, it's going to have a negative, in this case, negative 47. So these three are the ones that are past due for the account due date. And it also will highlight in pink here the actual due date. So it's trying to and you can easily see which one's past due and which ones are not. Now let's go to page 4 of the outline. Now we're going to go up to my home page and go under my user overview for my assigned tasks. So I have 5 new assigned tasks. And since we've been talking about these due dates over here, you see we have some due dates. So I have due tomorrow, due today. Again, it's just going to identify those that are past due. So you can easily check that out, and you see there's due dates. You can also remove some due dates if you want. So these have been here before. You can override them if you want to, change the date. Also, I can, let's see here, my filter task by user. First, let me check this box. Organize by task by status. So I check this box. Say you have a lot of assigned tasks in here and they're kind of overwhelming. Now you can kind of group them by task type. So in this case, phone message, I have 3 new tasks, total of 4. If I want to just focus in on my phone message tasks, then they'll display right here. Here are the 4. Obviously, the ones highlighted in yellow are the ones I haven't read yet. Let me see here. Organize by tasks. Due date tracking. I just went over that. Task count is now represented user's task. If I want to switch this over to, let me uncheck this box here. Say I want to look at another user's tasks. So right now it says I have 5 new assigned tasks total in my assigned tasks. Now I want to go to say I want to look at Mandy's. I hit apply. She has 14 new. It's just going to display her name just so I don't get confused that I'm not looking at mine. I'm actually looking at another employee's. That's how we can identify that based on its representative now whatever user you're looking at. Expand. Let me switch back to myself here. Mark. Hit apply. I have the same thing. I can expand and collapse notes. And again, this is set up on your user page. So if I want to look at all my, select that, collapse, I can do them all at once. If I go over here in the right-hand corner, that's going to do all my assigned tasks. Expand and collapse. So you can turn that on if you'd like. Next bullet, copy the assigned date to the due date field with a click. All right, so say I want to change my, let me go to, which one? Tommy Sager here. So if I check the box here, and right now my assigned date is 8/29/8/29. Say I want to change that to, I'm going to switch it back to the 27th. And instead of change, if my due date is the same as my assigned date, I can just now click on this arrow. That's going to pre-fill that in. I hit override dates, and now I've changed it. So now it says I'm past due by 2 days. So this little arrow icon here will just copy whatever the assigned date is over into the due date if they're identical dates. And I also have the clear. So if I want to get rid of, if I have a box here checked and I want to get rid of the due date completely because I don't use due date tracking, I would just hit the override dates, and now the due date is gone for that client. So that's what the clear date will do for you. Moving to the office overview. Right here, my office portal, I have 12 new messages. And during tax season, some of your clients, obviously, they're uploading file after file, so they might have 20 files for one client. And if you have several clients doing that, it gets quite large quickly. So this area can get quite overwhelming. So I have the same thing. You can organize by client. So if I check the box, now I'm going to group them so it's much easier to manage. And it'll tell me which ones are new, which ones I haven't actually looked at yet, and then a grand total of all of them. So if I want to focus in on, say, John Casey, I just click on the eyeball. It's going to show I have 3 of them. 2 of them I haven't actually read yet or taken a look at. So this is just a way of managing this page when it gets quite large during tax season. prospect portal. Go back to my home page. I have one new prospect message. I have the expand and collapse. I don't have it in the right-hand corner here, but now it's just for individual. Just find a look at all my notes I can, and again, collapse it. Simplify adding a new contact. So this case, John Adams here, brand new clients, asking how much do I charge. Say I want to add them as a prospect and try to win them over as a client. So we've always had this feature where we can add the contact. But now the new change here, when I click add, I'm going to get a pop-up box. So I can quickly change the year if I'd like. I can change the business type. So maybe I want to call it prospect. And when I do that, I can also, the account user, we usually use a preparer, and also my on-office creation. So say, for example, this is a payroll client. Well, for payroll, I like to have all these events created at one time whenever I add a new contact. So I set this all up in admin in the event status based on what I want created when I create a brand new client. What events do I want created when I create a brand new client? So based on the business type, so this will make it very easy and streamline the process of adding a new contact or adding a new client. Whereas before you just would add it and then you'd have to do kind of cleanup work inside the file. Now you can do it before you actually even add it. So this is kind of just making it more user-friendly for the receptionist, whoever actually does creating the new contacts. Okay, moving on to page 5. On my search field, I'm going to expand this, left click to expand all my fields. So on the phone number field right here, now you can search both with dashes or without dashes. It'll locate the phone number. New search criteria, we added the birth date, and the birth date, it would be, you'd want to have the slashes just like they are in the client file. So like two slash. So if I do 2, oh, it's right there. 1966, I do a search to find everyone who has a birth date of that, so myself and then one other person. But you want to enter it this way. You could do 02 and then 03, or you could just do 23, but you do need to have those forward slashes in there just the way it's populated inside the client file. You can also search based on the state and province or territory. So if you want to find everyone in a certain state, you could do that. And then to make it easier, because now we have so many search criteria, we are alphabetizing it. Now these are still standard here, but then when we expand it, we then alphabetize it to make it easier for you to locate the criteria you want to look for. Simplifying, adding a new client. Search this out here. So say a new client, JJ Test. I do a search. I don't locate them. So I'm going to hit Add New Contact. Again, I have my new pop-up box to make it more user-friendly. When you add a client or a contact, I can change the year. Again, I can switch the business type to whatever it should be. And again, I'm going to control what events I'd like to be created when I actually add the new contact. And I can also pick the account user if I'd like. So all that, when I just hit Add, it'll all populate. So again, less cleanup work once you actually, the way we had it before is you'd add it and then you'd have to kind of fix it. Now you're doing it before you actually even add it. Now we move down here to the, excuse me, the punch clock tab. We just cleaned up the in-out board a little bit. I found out it wasn't working the way I like it to. Now when I click on in-out board, it's going to default to all positions, the site that I'm logged in at, and also the status in. So I'm just going to be focusing in on the people that actually have punched in already today. If I want to see everybody, I can quickly hit all statuses, search. This is kind of what it used to look like. And then if you had multiple offices, you would see everybody and it was a little overwhelming. Now it's going to kind of just focusing on your office, but you can quickly switch over to other offices or If you want to look at when they left today, so if I want to focus in on just what time did they leave today, I can click on out and hit search, and it'll identify it. So we just cleaned up the in-out board is what we did. Moving on to page 6 for appointments. Okay, so when you see the appointment calendar now, obviously this is different than what you're used to looking at. This change is not coming in the summer release, it's coming in the fall release, okay? But we're still working out the bugs, so we don't have it ready for you yet, but it is in my demo beta site right now. But what I wanted to demonstrate to you is if you were to add a new client from here, or check a client in, when I double click and I go to hit check-in, because some of the users are not using the check-in screen. So again, we have the pop-up box, and it's going to say what year are they checking in. So it's not, before it always defaulted to the current year and the business type. Now you get to pick, well, actually the business type is already identified in the appointment calendar. So you get to pick the year, and maybe the account user, who they're coming to see, and again, it'll identify, do I want them to be going to the lobby or do I not? I can control that. So we just use the pop-up box. Anytime we're checking somebody in or adding a new contact, you'll have this pop-up box now. So I'm hoping that simplifies the whole process, so there's less cleanup work once you actually add the client or check them in. File information. Let me go into a file now. Go into John Casey's file here under tax preparation. So we already talked about the married filing separate, so we showed you the nice features that go along with that by checking that box. All right, and then again, it'll identify it, highlight in yellow, so you can see that they filed. Oh, in fact, I'm in Mary's file. Let me get into John's file here. Okay, so Mary's a spouse, married filing separate. All right, account information. Again, we kind of covered this already. If you were to add an account or a business type inside the client file, when you click the box, this will pop up, and you get to pick the year, the business type, and of course those events that get created with that business type, and the account user if you'd like to. So kind of already went over that a little bit. Tracking, linking, client billable time. Okay, this is a brand new page. So right here in the account information section, billable time. And in order to have this billable time button even display, you have to have a billable rate in your user page in admin in the tax reporting information. So when I click on billable time, so this is linked to my billable punch clock. So this is for the client John Casey right here. And if I go ahead and I'm going to go back to the 11th and hit apply. So I recorded billable time for John Casey using my normal punch clock, billable time, and this is the information. So we had different users. So I worked on John's file here, Dwan did, Dave Murray did also. Here's the hours, the amounts and everything. So this is a nice page that you can easily see for whatever date range you want, all the billable time associated with this client. And if I have a linked client, if this John's linked, I can quickly go to other client files that are linked to him to see what kind of billable information I have with that too. So I'm going to switch back to John here. Go back to the 11th, hit apply. And I could also filter by user, right here, this user, and also billing task. So if I want to look and see how much money am I billing based on, say tax preparation, it'll filter based on that. I can also run billable reports based on this filtering, and I can also export this all to Excel from here. Now another nice feature, I'm going to go back and hit apply. You can now push your billable time right into the transaction section of John's file. So let me go back here into his file here, and I'm going to clean up his transaction section to make it easier for you to see. So I'm going to select these, and I'm going to delete, hit OK. Now I'm going to go back into my billable time page, go back to my date range I had selected before. And now I can go ahead and push, say I want to just push these two into his transactions. I come down here and I want to push it to the 2018 tax prep. Then I select, say I want to call it fee other, and I want to create individual transactions. And I just pushed them into the transaction section, and this is what's identifying it right here. And I can quickly link to the transaction section, and there's the amount. So this is going to save you time so you don't have to do double entry where you're recording the billable time and then you got to go to the transactions and actually then log it all in. So I can either do it as individual line items or I can do it as a group. So I'm going to refer you to the help video and the help descriptions that go over this more in detail because I just don't have enough time to go into it. Just want to kind of demonstrate that nice feature we have to help save you time if you're invoicing your clients to Adam with billable time. Next section is the transaction information section. So just as I pointed out in the portal, paying with credit card, you don't have to worry about duplicate payments anymore. As soon as you hit send payment, this is going to get grayed out and you will not be able to do it a second time. Same way with the e-check also. Other accounts down here, the status, if the status is not complete, they will highlight in yellow. If you look here, most of them are in yellow. All it is just to bring attention to you so you can see this area that these account years are not complete yet. So we just highlighted it in yellow, the status. Moving on to page 7, the task notes information section. Right here, so we can move a task note now. So if I just check the box here, I can move this task to any one of the years, and they have some link clients in here, so I can move it anywhere I'd like. We had that set up for the transactions last year, so that makes it easy. In case you put something in the wrong year in the wrong client file, you can easily move it. I can delete multiple tasks, so again, check the box and just hit delete. That would delete this task. Due date tracking, just as we pointed out on the events page, the due date tracking, if you're using the due dates here, it'll highlight in yellow, just bringing attention to this, that it's due tomorrow. And if it was, past due, it would show how many days past due. You can also, again, same way with if I hit the edit pencil, if I want my assign date to be the same as my due date, all I gotta do is hit that arrow, it changes, and then I save it. One other thing I want to point out when I hit the general tab here and I create a brand new task, when I save this, in the past, it always defaulted the assign date to today's date, and it also created a due date to today's date also. That's no longer happening now that we have all these due date features working in Adam, like the due today, highlighting in red and all that. Now the due date will not display unless you either manually enter it or you copy it from the assign date down to the due date. So the due dates will not display anymore for any new task or events created. Let's see, expand and collapse task notes, just like the other areas. I can expand and collapse. I could do over here in the upper right hand corner, I could do them all at one time if I'd like. And again, that's set up on your user page if you like it. Office events, let me scroll up to my office events here. And I'm going to expand this to see all my events. Now I can move these. So if I just check the box, say I put, which happens every year, that you accidentally put events in the wrong person's client file, now you can quickly move them. So if it's a completely different client, you'd have to just link it first, then you check the boxes, and then you can move it anywhere you'd like to whatever year you'd like. So if you put it in the wrong year, you can quickly move them. So that should be a huge time saver when things get put accidentally in the wrong year or wrong client file. Sort in ascending and descending order over here. So if you want to have when you're viewing this, if you want to have your dates display in either descending or ascending order, you can do that just by left clicking on the column heading dates and times. The billable column, let me see here, let me show you one thing before we jump into the billable side. Also here, I have the exact same thing, my expand and collapse notes. I can do it in the upper right-hand corner, or I can do it individually right here. So now I'm going to, let me minimize this. I'm going to move over to talk about on the payroll side. So let me go into this client file, Adam Software here. So we've expanded, this is more for our billable, our payroll, people that are using Adam to track their payroll and their bookkeeping clients, probably more so than just tax preparation. So we've really enhanced this area in the office event section. So this is typically what you'd probably would be seeing if you're using Adam to maybe track your payroll clients. So we have a lot of events open right here. Okay, so it's a lot of information to see on one page. So what we've done is we've created a checkbox organized by status. So if you don't want to see all those, you can still see all those rows if you'd like, or you can kind of condense it into this smaller table, which gives you some nice information. So to begin with, so if it's not done, so if it's not like every event closed out, then this will be highlighted in yellow here. The status is going to tell me the status. Then in these in parentheses, it's going to tell me how many. So I've had 19 payroll events. This flag indicates that I have a note somewhere in one of those events, and it's going to tell me the type, my event type. So whether it's biweekly, monthly, quarterly, so I can kind of group them. Over here, the due date, this is based on the due date of the event. So when you having payroll or bookkeeping, you always have to keep track of your due dates. The due dates are all recorded down right here in the assigned due date column, and then you can easily see which ones are due today or tomorrow or maybe in the future, how many days. So it'll highlight in yellow, so easily if you're in the file, you can see what's due now. And you can also track your billable or your budgeted hours, and this is all based on event billable time. It has nothing to do with the punch clock. So there's two ways of tracking billable time. So if you want to use the events, you can use it. If you want to keep using the punch clock, you can. But this is tracking, you can compare budgeted to billable time, and then there's the variance and average days. It's just going to track on average how long does it take you to complete this task over past the due date. So if it's a negative number, that means you're doing a good job. You're doing it even before the due date. And then the summary, that takes you off, which this is nothing new. This kind of just takes you off and gives you more summary details of that particular event. So I can, inside here, I can click on the view icon and I can see all my payroll events here. If I left click here, I can just focus in on the open event. So right here, again, I have my due date tracking, just like in my other tasks and notes section. It's going to tell me when it's due today, or it's a past due, or how many, if it's due in the future. My event type, which is right here, this is under the settings. So biweekly, and that's all set up in my admin. And I have a really good video and field descriptions on this. So I definitely recommend, if this is of interest to you, watch the video. It does a better job. I'm kind of going quickly over it because I got a lot of material to cover. But the bottom line is this is a better way of tracking your bookkeeping and your payroll clients, way of staying organized and keeping track of due dates. Again, we have some override fields here to help you. So if you need to put some start dates or end dates in here for multiple events at one time, you can do that just by checking the selection box here and putting whatever dates you'd like in here. Same way with your billable time too, if you want to use Adam, the events for tracking billable. Let me see if I covered everything. I'm on page 8 right now of the outline. Override field, we just talked about that. The status table. Now I'm flipping over to page 9. And my due date tracking on the very top there, that's the exact same. It just works exactly the same if you're using the due date to keep track of when events are due. then it'll display in yellow and also highlight in red the due today if it's due today. Okay, that's all I have for that. Let me move this out of here. I'm going to go back into my John Casey file. Let me scroll down. Now I'm on link clients on page 9. So to get to the link clients, this has been pretty tricky for a lot of our users to understand. So again, I try to simplify it. So a lot of the changes we did this year try to make things easier for your users, for your employees to do some of the tasks. So to get to the link clients, I either can scroll to the bottom of the page or I can left click in my little title bar here. That's going to shoot me to the bottom of the page. So in this example, I already have 3 clients that are linked to John Casey's file. All right. The changes that we've made are actually the process of linking them. So when I click on the button, Add Link Client, I'm going to get a new pop-up box, and I'm going to go ahead and enter the client I want to link. So in this example, I want to link last name Jacob, and I do apply. I'm going to see all my Jacobs right here. I'm going to go ahead and take the first one. And if I want to link this so that the client, they can see each other's portal pages, that's what these check boxes are for. And again, I have a nice training video on that demonstrating whether you want to check the box or not. The descriptions or relationships, I'm sorry, would be entered here. So you can do everything now in one step, in one box, as opposed to before you had to kind of go back and forth between the client file. Again, which was a little confusing. So I'm hoping this is going to simplify things for you. And then I just hit save. And now they're added right down here. Okay, and I didn't put a relationship. I didn't check the box. So that's how it's not showing. So I think this is an easier process to link client files. And again, I'm going to encourage you to take a look at the help video and the field descriptions for that to get a better understanding. Now moving to the admin tab. So I'm on page 9 of the outline, admin, and we added some more expand and collapse notes for the email text templates. So here, as you look again, I got the arrow that's just going to expand and collapse, so it makes it easier to manage this page. And if you want to see the note, you just again make that selection. Moving on to page 10, if I go to the event status, and I'm going to go to business type tax preparation, and I believe I'm going to go down to my drop off. And all we did is, again, to make it easier to manage this page, I can expand or collapse my notes there. And lastly, my mailers report. All we did is, if I pull this back over here, now I'm on the back of my page, page 10. So we just added, some of you guys asked for, you wanted the nickname or DBA added to that export, and we also added the requested account user to be added to that page to report. So that's all for the summer release. So we started this back in February to get all these changes. So we're probably going to have more changes this year than we ever have. We have some great ones coming in the winter, for the fall release, which hopefully we're looking for, in the November timeframe. But we have a lot of changes we want to still continue to work on to make you ready for tax season. But hopefully by doing it here in the summer, you can use these right now. And again, there's a lot of nice changes for the people that are using Atom to track their bookkeeping and payroll clients. So I hope you enjoy them, and I will talk to you again this fall. Thank you again for all your support.